house up. If he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house.
The pay differential never seems to close, and the World Economic Forum found that if we continue at our current pace, it will take 100 years to close the global gender gap. So we literally cannot get that wrong.
They're not afraid of more musicians. They're afraid of you.
Welcome to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you also for joining us tonight. It is an amazing Tuesday night here in the Cellar Door Skeptics studio, the studio of all studios. And we are going to be talking again about Afghanistan, right? We're going to be talking about China, their workforce, how they spend their time. And if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but we're also going to be talking about Biden, his failure to remove us properly. With that being said, why don't I bring my co-hosts in? Tonight we have Mr. Chris Hanna on the bottom screen. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm good. A little exhausted. Life is rough, but we'll find the money to cover it all.
There you go. And on the far right of the screen, we have Miyu. I think that's how you say it. Miyu, Mawu,
Not even close. Not even close.
Mahu. And now I'm going to be singing a Who song. We have the Whoville. There you go.
No, that's like the first internet. Like the internet.
The first internet?
And like that guy was like the first real internet. Like I don't know.
The first star?
Like, he was like the first. No. Like, you think of like the internet was like a thing, and then there was like the first monoculture thing that was like, now that is some internet, like where everyone kind of like saw this viral thing happen. And I remember that dude and a couple of the funny pictures or something like that, like some of the early cat photos and stuff. Like those were like the first things that went like full on internet viral. And I always remember that guy.
I don't remember him, weirdly enough.
The Numa guy?
Oh, man.
Yeah. I don't remember him. Is it a cultural thing? Like something that, like
It was just a moderately overweight guy in a set of headphones and glasses. He looked like a Bare Naked Ladies lead singer. And he was just lip syncing to like, I don't know where this song's
Dragon's
from.
Dating Te by Ozone.
I don't know any of those things.
I think they're Romanian.
Yeah. I was going to say it sounded European. But anyways, like I was going to go Scandinavian or something.
The vaguely European. Is that a dodgeball team? Oh no, it's the vaguely Canadian and ambiguously European. Something like that, I'm not sure.
But in the end, it was like I can't think of anything besides a couple of like the G.I. Joe shorts and stuff like that would predate the Maya singing guy. Like, unless you guys can think of something way earlier on the internet, like the first big things you remember. That's one of the early ones I remember.
I mean, there are things that I remember that were big on the internet, but I'm not sure this is the place to talk about them.
All right. Yep. All right. We're going to move past that portion.
Oh, they're
the discussion.
Moldovan. Oh, they speak in Romanian. Interesting.
Oh, all right. So tonight we have some topics we wanted to talk about. And I know we're a day later. We might be moving the podcast to Tuesdays. I don't know. It just seems like it gets easy. Everything just keeps getting away from us. So we're gonna take a vote and maybe go back to Tuesdays instead of Mondays. But we'll see.
End of summer. It's always like this at the end of summer.
It is. Yep. And there's a lot of things going on in the world right now. So to begin with, we're going to be talking about the topic we talked about last night. So we're going to have a conversation a little bit about Afghanistan. And we have to follow up, right? Because technically speaking, today was the last day. So technically the war is over, right? And I've been posting some pretty aggressive anti-Biden stuff on my Facebook page, and I'm getting a lot of flack for it. Honestly, like I'm getting a lot of flack for this, and I understand that, because if Trump were in office, I would be just as critical, right? I think Biden's doing one of the poorest jobs any president has ever done, and Biden does not give a fuck. He just doesn't. Now, I'll tell you, I would not have wanted Trump in this situation. So by no means am I saying it would have been better if we had Trump in this avenue, right?
We can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. So Buddy, we're going to give Buddy the first floor topic, right? Because Buddy's going to be able to have a conversation because he wasn't on last week. And I want to talk a little bit about what he feels about Afghanistan and the U.S. and their wonderful exit from America, or from Afghanistan.
I mean, it definitely speaks wonder that your country's pullout game is mad weak. I'm gonna start off with that. Not that Canada's is any better, but this is one of those things that I've kind of casually read about it. I am by no means really well versed in it. I've learned a few little nuanced takes on it, and one highly problematic thing is, Biden did promise to pull out of Afghanistan, and yay, that's great. This should have been done, I don't know, less than or more than 20 years ago when y'all first went in there and dragged us with you. I think we were out of there 2014, 2015 is when Canada's troops pulled out, because my friend was with the artillery and he was there, and he was one of the last groups to come home. I'm just trying to think now. But an interesting point was made about this on another podcast, and they were talking about how there's always some sort of a war going on in Afghanistan. There's always been some turmoil, some other external forces fucking with the works. And by the way, apparently we're going full explicit tags tonight, and it's one of those places where you don't go there because you want to fix things. You go there because you want to change things to make it more or less problematic for whatever it is you want in the region at the end of the day. They knew they didn't need to go to Afghanistan in the first place, but they still did. How many people have tried invading Afghanistan over the last, 50 years, right? Like the Russians, that's how they lost, or, well, I'm doing the scare quotes, not that you can see me because my camera's being a piece of shit. Oh, there we go. It's finally fucking working. That's cool. So, lost the Cold War there. And other than the Ruskies, God, who the hell else? Was it Britain's gone in there and failed? America's. It's basically like the modern version of Vietnam, where somebody just had an agenda, wanted to go in there for some reason. It wasn't the right reasons, but there were reasons they wanted to go there. And, so they dragged half the world in there. And I unfortunately supported that for some reason because I was young and dumb. But it's, you fast forward to now, and Trump had signed a deal with the Taliban, essentially saying, no, we're gonna leave, it's fine, it'll all be yours, you guys just do whatever you want, we trust you, totally no takesies backsies, it's fine, and that garbage. And it just it was so bungled up, and it kind of seems like it was done deliberately because he knew, or somebody in his group knew, that if they did what they did, then the next people, because I'm gonna run with a little bit of a conspiratorial thought process, so bear with me here, is that somebody figured that if they could just sign this deal, so this way, they're setting up to leave Afghanistan, they knew that they weren't going to win the next election, so we'll set the next guy up to fail. And Obama said he was going to pull out of Afghanistan, did he not? And didn't. And then, Biden says, yeah, we're gonna pull out of Afghanistan, and then they did. But the problem is that you can't just up and leave after you've gone and fucked everything up for how many goddamn decades now? You can't just be like, we're gonna remove the entire foundation of what we've set up here and just have fun. We'll see what happens, right? These are actual lives that are at stake. So it was very poorly executed, very poorly thought out. And there should have been somebody in the Biden team that looked and was like, yo, Trump's setting us up to fail here. We've got to smarten up. because people will die over this, and the Taliban are not a group that you can just give power to. You can't, because they will use it, they will abuse it, and they're going to take people, or they're going to take the country back how many centuries, right? So they're theocratic zealots, and it's, you cannot just leave them to do their thing. You can't.
Well, and I think, that's what our first article from Al Jazeera is, right? Is a discussion about what Biden thinks. Biden is literally defended his withdrawal and has been very, essentially their secretary, I feel like I'm Canadian now because I don't want to be American anymore. But the Secretary of Defense essentially was like, "Oh, we're gonna give some extra time. We're gonna ensure we get everybody out." And here we are. It's the morning of Tuesday, and we're gone. Because UTC time and all that crazy shit, right? So, but here we are. So here's an Al Jazeera article. Here is Biden, and that's a perfect picture of Biden right there, right? There's senile old man, probably shouldn't have gotten the nomination. Not as good as the majority of the candidates we had. We could have had somebody in my age group, for fuck's sake. Anyway, we're stuck with this guy. And essentially, he's like, I'm not going to extend the war forever. What do you want me to do? And it's like, well, hold on, buddy. Like, you left all these people behind. And there was an article we didn't get to last week, Hanna, that talked about the rising casualty rates and the predicted casualty rates that we're going to have based on this. We didn't even get to that article. And so this article is talking about how he's essentially saying that, Biden says keeping U.S. troops in control of the airport beyond that would have exposed them to heightened security risks. Well, sure. Why not fly in another 500,000 troops, right? We can amass large amounts of fucking people in short amounts of time. And yeah, I get we have a national disaster going on too, but we have plenty of military. The last I checked, and I think we're spending trillions of dollars, right, on the defense budget. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Yeah, you are on that one. So basically, the idea of amassing a major force to remove all of the people is an interesting place where you can kind of get both sides of the spectrum happening, where you could appease the Republican nationalists saying we are not leaving anyone behind. We are using our brave American soldiers that are they're there to fight. They're not there because they need money because they're too poor. But they're there to fight because America. Anyways, those wonderful people would be put in harm's way to make sure that we get everyone back, all the dogs, all the copters, all the whatever. We get all the things back, and then the last few people obviously will be in danger, but they're just soldiers, so our government would love to just put them in harm's way. In the end, to me, this is one of those things like the Republicans bet, okay, we're going to say that we're going to have a withdrawal by X day. And they said, well, if we win, we can always say, like, we reassessed, we're not doing it. But they know that Democrats are just gullible enough, and they don't have enough spine to say, you know what, Trump said this, but this is not the right thing to do, and this is the wrong way to do it, and we're not going to go by this hard deadline, and we're going to extend it, change it, and we're going to do it the right way. That's not what they did. The Trump idiots all knew that if they put a hard thing down and Biden didn't hit it, they could all say, hey, look at this guy, he's weak, he's spineless, he couldn't make it happen, he couldn't get it done. And the Democrats are like, no, we can do it. And in the end, what we get is this bungled, centrist garbage of it's just everything about this is bad. And the Democrats ate the debate, hook, line, and sinker. And this is one of the reasons why we need to talk to people and listen to people inside the Democratic and the liberal and progressive wing of things who say no at the beginning to all of these crazy strategies, and they say this is the wrong way to do it. Because I guarantee you, the people that we were supporting in the election are saying significantly different things than what the current administration is saying and wanted to do. And it's frustrating to deal with this, but like this is where we are. And it happens every time. So the Democrats get out strategized, and then they look like idiots because they followed through with things that they didn't have enough spine to push back on. It's my opinion.
Yeah. So, and that's fine. I'm actually going to go one further, right? And this, I'm angry this week. I'm pretty angry. If you can't tell, I'm a pretty angry person normally, but I'm really angry this week.
You were yelling at Keith's mic earlier. Like, we get it. We get it.
No, that was me.
That was him, not me. That was him. That was the Canadian. And if you think that's yelling, maybe in Canadian that's yelling, but the Canadian typically doesn't. When he yells, it's like, oh, come on. I don't even take it seriously because it's not like real yelling. But so here in the article, the European Council actually recommended to not withdraw and to allow for more time. People inside of Biden's own party said, let's give it more time. And here's what pisses me off is Biden is brushing this off. This is where a failure president. This is a president that's going to go, hey, boop, there you go. You guys want the Senate back? Do you guys want the Senate? Do you guys want the House? Okay, hey, Republicans, come on, come get it. I just wanted to say I was president before I died. I just literally wanted to say I was president. It's almost like a Trump thing. He's literally mimicking how Trump would act. And this is a fucking 40-year into career politician. These are the people you're electing, folks. This is what you're fucking the trash that you're getting. I get we had to get rid of Trump. We had to get rid of Trump. This would be worse, especially because Trump's tweeting, or not, he's not tweeting. Trump's releasing a statement on some weird network that we have no idea of. But he released a statement basically saying he would have just bombed the shit out of them as soon as they killed 12 Americans. He just would have bombed them. And it's like, well, you can't bomb the airport because we need the airport to leave. We actually need the airport to leave. And what's infuriating is that Biden is not taking this seriously. There is no fucking seriousness being taken by this. They're just saying we're going to do what we can and bye-bye. And the fucking problem is that people in the Democratic Party are literally doing the exact same thing. They're just mimicking it. They're just saying, hey, all right, no problem. We're going to go wrong. At least we got Biden, not Trump. And I have to now go and defend Biden or defend what we're doing to people that are like, would you rather have Trump in office right now? Look, at least he would have done something. And it's like, no, his failed plans and his failed actions, like we talked about last week, are what got us here. He had the Taliban in America, not Biden.
Well, the guy that's in charge of the Taliban right now, like part of the negotiations that Trump had was to release the guy who's leading the Taliban right now if they promise to be nice and behave and allow a peaceful transition. But they immediately rescinded that because they are an untrustworthy group of jackoffs. And this is a good example of a place where if they don't behave, the strong arm of the Biden presidency could have said, you violated the terms. Our people are in danger. The local people are in danger. The Afghanis who helped us all these years are in danger. Therefore, we will not submit to being chased away, and we will use the strength that we have. And unfortunately, as you and I and Keith also probably is almost as much as the rest of us are basically pacifists, thinking that war is usually the absolute end all and it's the last course of action. But if we've already been forced into this situation through bad decisions of the Republican Party and bad decisions of the industrial military complex, we have to sometimes use the position of strength to try to get our people out safely. And all of the strong arm people in like the Republican Party are going to say Biden's weak, Biden's weak, Biden's weak. And this is another place where we're going to be seeing the House and the Senate losing its Democratic edge is because these kinds of things are sensational and they motivate people to vote. And these kinds of blunders will be they will have major repercussions, especially in the next year's vote. I don't know. I'm very frustrated with this. There was no real good way to do it because it shouldn't have been done with a hard line. And now I just think that this is one of this will be a defining moment in the presidency. And I do think that this is the stuff that all the progressives who said we don't want a centrist pushover who's basically backed by the corporate Senate and corporate House. We don't want that. We need someone stronger than that. And this is what happened. And this is what we were afraid of.
Yep. I don't know, Keith. What any other thoughts before we move on? Because I feel we could spend the next 20 minutes on this topic and it would just turn into me ranting. So
I mean, I'm right there with you in the suffering. Being right in the heart of fucking conservative circle jerk. It's anything. You're not allowed to say anything critical of the dear leader, lest well, well, who would you rather? You'd rather be a socialist? Like, no, I would rather have somebody who is better than both of these people. Sorry that you think that criticism of what you support is an attack on you, and that you must inherently justify everything. You can't just sit there and be like, yeah, shit sucks. Like I'm sorry that you're burdened by that. Because honestly, it's like at the end of the day, I don't support what Biden's done. I really would have rathered somebody better than Biden, but honestly, Biden was still better than Trump. And you're right when you bring up, Trump was like, they kill President Harris will bomb 12 of theirs, because that was the mentality was you kill one of our citizens, we will blow up your city. You blow up our building, we're going to nuke your goddamn country. And I'm kind of amazed that, W couldn't find that button, because I know how his propensity for shiny things was, the man was a lot easier distracted than I am. And you guys listen to me often enough that you know how easy it is to throw me off. So it's, it sucks because on it feels like we're fighting both sides. You're trying to defend against the howling monkey masses that are just sitting there seeing like, see, things still suck, things still suck. Yeah, exactly.
They are
and I
happy
think,
this failed.
and
They're
that
happy that our
betrays
people
a
are dying.
very that betrays a very big difference between the I don't want to say the left side and the right side, because I know that there are psychopaths and outliers of the data sets on both sides and whatever, but the bottom line is that typically from a left perspective, it's not a I want you to fail, it's an I think you're going to fail and I don't want you to. And then on the right is, it's not my way, then I want it to fail. And when it doesn't, well, I'm going to make it look like it does, and I'm going to tell everybody it did anyways, because that makes me look bad. And it's more about saving face than it is about actual leadership. And it's fucking pathetic. It's fucking embarrassing. Sorry, I don't have a
fucking
garbage can I can kick
embarrassing.
across the room.
Yeah. You have a basket in the back of your room. You could run over there and kick that basket. It's not a garbage can, but it's a basket.
You don't want to kick laundry. You don't want to kick perfectly folded laundry. We all know that all Canadians have perfectly folded laundry baskets. Nothing is ever lost in a eye. It is all absolutely perfect.
I'm the one who does the laundry in this house, and the fun thing is that Ash tried to fold my laundry once, and I thanked her for it. I was like, "Oh, I really appreciate it." And then as soon as she left the room, I had to fix it because it wasn't done.
Dude, it's the exact opposite. When I fold the laundry and if I fold shirts, I do it wrong. And then I come back and it's all in a different place and it's folded properly. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know why I can't do it correctly. I can mill and cut things within 0.001 of an inch, sometimes 0.0001 of an inch. I'm talking accuracy here, and I can't fold some of my wife's clothing if you put a gun to my head and told me that troops are coming home safe. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but sometimes I just have to bow down and say, okay.
Thanks, honey.
There you go. All right. So for the next topic that we have tonight is employers can't require people to work 72 hours a week according to China's high court. So I will be honest, I did not know other large countries could force people to work 72 hours a week.
Yeah.
That's a good thing that we can't do that, because I don't think I could do this very long. I know you used to do this, but
I'm just gonna point out, and it will kill you.
I'm just going to point out, in the States, it's a lot more insidious because, it's illegal, but it's strongly encouraged anyways.
Well, no, it's not even that. What do we talk about? It's like proud of the grind, right?
Yes.
Like people are like, I worked and I've said this many times in my life. I used to be, but it was also small business, and I was working for me, not for corporation. But I was working 72 to 80 hours a week. I was working almost a full day on Sunday, and 12 hours a day every other day of the week. And I was proud of that. because I was building my company, but I was losing my life. I was losing my relationship with my kids and my family. Like it literally will you're not there. And in other countries, like in the U.S., we love to talk crap about our socialists, and the few things for the New Deal, and when it comes to fighting for the rights of the workers. But I tell you what, if any of the people hanging out in the American Rust Belt were in a country that said no, you have to work 12 hours. This isn't an option. Come to work
Yeah.
6 days a week, and all of these MAGA hats in Tennessee would be like, wait a minute, yeah, you like that stuff, don't you? You like that regulation on corporations. This is a great example of the Chinese never had that. They went directly from rice paddies to cell phones, and
Yeah.
their country didn't have the time to develop the kind of human rights
Well,
and basic rights
let's
that we
also
take advantage of
not
here.
gloss over kind of what influence that change to happen, like, because you're right, it basically did happen overnight.
Mhm.
I can't even remember the name of the damn documentary on Netflix where they talked about the industrialization of China during the friggin' 70s and 80s, and I think there was a city that was built in under a month or something, like it was, or some crazy short amount of time, and it was just because they had to. It was out of necessity. And it was basically what happens when there's a dictatorial communist state for the poor, and then free market for anybody who makes enough money, basically. And that's just not something that's okay. But I mean, to your point of you're running a business, you were working 96 hours a week, and I still think that that's friggin' nuts.
It is. It
Because
is.
as you were saying, you
It's
were losing
unhealthy.
your life, and it drives me nuts that in uh, the mentality in North America here is that you have to prove your worth or whatever, instead of you have to be seen and respected as a human being first,
You have
and
inherent wealth.
then you have an inherent value. And it drives me nuts that one of the big things that a lot of people struggle with is asking for a raise. And this is something that I'm dealing with in my own job, because I'm having frustrations with how things have been running in my company. And even though I am further ahead than most of my coworkers, there's still ways that I've been fucked over that I'm trying to figure out how I can navigate, because I don't have the authority, I don't have the power in that situation, right? So, and that's a whole part of the dynamic that a lot of people seem to forget, is that there's that power dynamic where if you say the wrong thing to your boss, well,
Yep.
you're fucked.
You could lose your
And
job. Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
So
And
is that what's happening
to
in China then? They're giving them
and to bring it to relevancy here, in the NPR article, it was saying how under Chinese law, monthly overtime totals are essentially limited to 36 hours. A gentleman was refused to work illegal amounts of overtime, which was dictated by his schedule, and was fired. The company said that he failed to fulfill the requirements of his probation period, which is absolutely ridiculous. And then he disagreed. So the arbitration panel ordered his former employer to pay him, and this really bothers me, $1,237,
There you go.
or 8,000
Because
yuan, and that was a month's salary. That's like less than, well, I mean, a little over half of what I make currently, and like, I'm sorry, the minimum wage, and you have these heightened expectations that I'm supposed to be a superhuman, but you don't want to pay me more than the bare minimum. There is a finger in the middle here, and it is exactly what I want you to see, and then shove up your ass.
Well, so we're gonna have to stop for just a second though, and I get your point based on economy value, but we have to actually look at like the national wealth and the wealth of the corporations and things like that first, and what it takes to live on. So there is understanding that inside of the country, which we're not actually going to get into because I didn't do that research. So I don't know what it takes to live in China. I don't know any of that type of thing.
Right.
You're right.
That was just more me being kind of shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my office mate, literally directly next to me, he moved over from China when he was younger, and he says it varies so drastically and insanely. But he told me today, this is the best. Told me today that just like in the United States, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. He
Yep.
says it's no different, and
The golden rule.
that's also the Communist Republic of China. So it's an interesting perspective.
Well, I think.
Mhm.
Oh man, we got a yawn there. We got a yawn.
Sorry.
Uh-oh.
It's been I was sick all week or half the weekend. My dogs were sick all weekend, so that was not fun. But no, I think the big thing here is, and Keith, this doesn't take away anything from what you're saying. I think you make a valid point in understanding what it takes to live, to make money into everybody's daily lives. And I think the difference becomes is what social type programs they have, different things like that. Now, I will tell you off the record that the company I worked for had a branch in China, right? I worked for a logistics company. It specifically, we had that as a strategic engagement. When we closed that plant, we paid salaries for an undisclosed amount of time. I can't technically reveal it, but we paid out money to people that worked for us in that country.
Do you know whether or not you pay salary taxes at all?
That I don't know, and I probably wouldn't be at liberty to say if I did. So,
as far as I know, according to my friend, there are no income taxes in China. This is part of the People's Republic that they have.
Where do they get their money from?
Or if it's not income taxes, there's no property taxes. One of the two. It's either no income taxes or there's no property taxes. But there is a surprisingly big chunk of the country that is tax free, but they basically have total control and pull in all kinds of stuff from other places. It's an interesting perspective because he was like describing some of the things when it comes to like basically going by laws and stuff. Is a lot of times laws are partially enforced, but as long as you're not doing anything against the state, it's a lot lighter, and regulations and stuff. Same thing with like how the state funds itself. So a lot of the major industries are state owned, state run. They don't really need individual personal taxes because they are essentially in charge of all the means of production. Because that's one of the reasons why like you hear that like TikTok is being threatened in the United States is because the Chinese state itself is deeply involved in all the technology markets and all their manufacturing processes and everything. So like he was telling me, if I remember right, there are no property taxes. I'm not certain if there was any income taxes or not too, but like I remember him saying that, and I was like, he's like, there's no taxes like that, and I was like, you're kidding. It was a big deal. So I don't know. I'll report back to confirm, but that was one of the things that like really surprised me. Is like they do different things with the way they do taxation in that country, and makes things look good to certain things and bad for others.
Yep.
But anyways, back to the relevance to this topic here is essentially that the government is saying that they can't require people to work the 72-hour, which is 6 12-hour days, and so they can't require them to. Does it say anything about like, do they have like a standard 40-hour work week and then they just ignore it, or
what? Yeah, what they said is, let me go back to it. Sorry, that you can essentially monthly overtime totals are limited to the 36 hours for the month.
What would be overtime then? So like there's regular time and overtime is like
right. What's the minimum hours? So okay.
Yeah.
I don't. We can Google it in a minute, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's a 40 to 50 hour work week. That's my guess. Because there's other issues that have gone on here, right? There's other people that have dropped dead.
It is. It's a 40-hour work week according to business hours in China. So it's a standard to the U.S. So they're expecting them to do 40, and some companies are requiring 72. So that's the basis for the conversation.
Yeah, and essentially because there's been enough undersight, I guess is what you would call it. They finally had to rule in favor and say, "Hey, we need to do something because there is people that are dying more than you can imagine." The other article I have talks about that they are also not paying the overtime. So not only are we dealing with the fact that the companies are working 996, but they're not also paying out overtime. Now they're still paying them, but they're not paying them overtime in the
What was the 996?
996 is 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. 6 days a week. Your 12-hour 6-day work days. But they call it 996. That's what they call it. Which actually I should just name the damn episode that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I saw it through there. I just didn't. So 996. So 9 to 9, 6 days a week is
In your world it was 797. That was what you were, like a 797 guy for a little while there. 7 to 9, 7 days a week.
No, it would have been 7 to 7, 7 days a week. That's 12 hours. 7 would be 14 a day. That would be Chris's floating in the end of a ditch.
Okay. We'll move on. I've heard you've done that before though. Anyway,
no, we did have some days that were crazy, but yeah. Anyways, the Chinese are basically working. I know that the in Japan they have issues with people that work 100 hours, and there's a woman who did that for I think it was a month or so, and she died. And I'm assuming Chinese are running in the same kind of situations where they're working somewhere between 70 and 100 hours a week, and people will die because of that.
Well, yeah, that's you're not giving your body a chance to relax, and you're so stressed out because the like an 8-hour workday doesn't leave you with a whole lot of extra time to get an adequate sleep, eat enough, and pursue either passions or the potential for doing something different. So I could only imagine what like a 996 would be. Like that's just like you have nothing, no time for anything.
Yeah, I used to work 60 hours a week, but that was the most. I highlighted the fact that one of the people that had passed away, the company owes them basically $62,000 for that life. That is what the value of that life was. Now, if we take that $61,000, and I don't know how to bring a calculator up on the screen, but let's just take $62,000 divided by 52 weeks. That's $11.92. And when we go back to here, what was the payout? They had to pay him. Where was that? About a month's pay of $12.37. So if we take $12.37 times 12 months, that's $14,000. So essentially, they value this employee's life at
an extra 14 grand.
No, more than that. 46,900, or basically 46,900. So essentially, if you take 61, they value this person's life at roughly 4 to 5 years. That's what they said.
He was making 14, and they're saying, "Oh, since he died, he gets 61."
Yeah, that's essentially what they're saying. And now you tell me, like, and maybe this is where the difference in capitalism comes in a little bit. Like, I had a friend who lost a leg, almost died in a car accident. 100% not her fault. The truck driver, we still don't know exactly what he was doing. He was sober, luckily, but in the middle of a day, basically slid and and she slammed into the side of the truck. And what happened was she lost her leg. She's been in therapy. Horrible. Her payout was millions of dollars, right?
Yep.
Millions of dollars, and she's not dead. So that's, again, I get that's not dying from work conditions, but that guy was reckless. This company specifically did these things, and here they're only having to pay 5 years' salary. So that goes that's like my life insurance. I can have 5 times whatever I make a year, and it gets capped, I think, at like 300 grand or something like that. So I'm allowed 5 times my salary, capped at 300 grand if I die before I'm 50 because of my life insurance policy. But I pay like $2 a week for it, but in the end, it's still worth it, because if I do die or have a heart attack or get COVID for some, god awful reason, I think that the idea here is they get to live for 5 years. Now, this is a company manipulating, and here's what China's saying your worth is. That's what your worth is.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, and I don't know if you guys remember the Ford Pinto. Mm-hmm. Remember the Ford Pinto?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you remember the basically the issue they ran into with the Ford Pinto being essentially a death trap. But the reason it really, really, really became a major issue, do you remember that at all? Do you remember what
No,
the trigger that was?
just
So
tell
what
us, buddy.
what Ford did? No, I was just like one of those things. Like in my business ethics class, they were saying they were calculating the value of the loss of life. So Ford itself knew the car had a problem. They were like, okay, this car is dangerous. We estimate that there will be this number of people killed. And they said, you know what? We're going to guess and estimate that each human life is worth approximately this much based on, you know, the number of the number of people that they believe would be in an accident and would sue. And so essentially what they did is they, in contrast, Ford figured that, and they said there would be 2,100 accidents, and so the court settlements they could achieve would be around $200,000 for each life lost. $67,000 for serious injuries, and then $700 for each vehicle. So they said that humans in the United States were worth 200 grand. Now this
Jesus.
was, yeah, this is, I mean, and so this is early 1970s, between 73 and 74. So this was a massive deal, and it essentially caused a complete, entirely major change as far as what we were talking about in the United States, as far as car safety and human life. China, that number may be significantly smaller in China, but this could be one of those moments where the Chinese people are saying, I'm thoroughly and genuinely insulted by the value that you're giving life, and I do think this needs to change. This isn't quite as drastic. Like, people aren't just like, jumping from the buildings where they make apple chips, with the special nets to keep them from dying. But like, if there was something where we had a major valuation and people were dying, and the Chinese people said, I'm sick of this kind of calculation is making, this is not the People's Republic, this is not a government for us. And then we have revolts or whatever, and you see things like what's going on in Hong Kong, where there's a few bastions of actual people pressing for free speech and free rights and human rights and stuff like that. I don't know what it takes inside of China where the people to have enough education to realize that they need to revolt and fight for their rights, or if China will ever be able to completely suppress the people to keep them kind of in line, and then we will lose the idea of like the global democratic growth or not. But in the end, this could be one of those tipping points. This could be a Malcolm Gladwellian tipping point where we see the Chinese people saying, no, we're worth our value in labor, and we're going to try to do collective bargaining or something. And like, a whole bunch of them are going to die. The Chinese are going to disappear, all kinds of people. And this could be a thing that changes. Or nothing major will happen, and this will be just a blip in the history. But we'll hope for something, to change in the future. But like, I mean, this is interesting that the Chinese courts are deciding that's still unsafe, even in this aspect. Like, because I mean, I would assume the Chinese courts are like, yeah, whatever, we're controlled by the party, so workers work till death, and then we move on because they're a resource.
It's kind of funny as you're explaining that. It kind of remind how Ford essentially said, like the human life is only worth 200 grand or whatever in 1980s dollars or whichever. It just all of a sudden I had Edward Norton narrating in the back of my head, I mean, we were all in the early 20s.
When your prices are
Yeah,
welded to the
no, it
price.
wasn't even so much that. It was talking about the recall coordinator, saying if it's such and such a thing has X likelihood of fail times however many automobiles we've produced
we
times
initiate a recall.
Yeah, exactly. And if the average cost is less than recall, then okay, we'll do it, whatever. And I had that playing in the back of my mind. For those of you who aren't aware, it's Fight Club, and we were all in our early 20s once and idolized them.
Pretty
So-
good.
So Keith sent over. So on the screen right now, I have their labor management, wages, and holiday work, right? And essentially, what this is saying is the PRC law provides that people's government of provinces, autonomous regions, and municipalities directly under the state council lay down the level of minimum wage. In setting the minimum wage level, different standards are adopted throughout different regions. Municipalities directly under the state adopt the same standards throughout the city, right? Salary and wages are payable in currency on a monthly basis. Well, that's weird, but okay. Non-cash payment in lieu of currency is not allowed. So that must have happened at some point in the and it happened at some point. Which is weird. The staff workers are entitled to pay during holidays, maternal leave, and personal leave for death in the family. So they're very similar to us. During overtime, the employer should pay the employees in accordance with the following standards. Normal overtime work. Employer should pay the employee no less than 1.5 the normal wage rate. For working rest days in the absence of arrangement of compensation leaves, the employer should pay the employee no less than 2 times the normal wage rate. For work on holidays, the employer should pay no more than 3 times the wage rate.
Holy
So,
shit.
A lot of those
That's pretty
rates are
good.
copied from the United States standards. Like they really are. I mean, they
Or
copy our
we
IP,
copied
so why
from
not
them.
copy our laborers. No. We had that stuff way before they did.
All right, we'll see. All right, so if the employers can not adhere to normal working time, they can adopt other alternative working time systems subject to the approval of a local labor department. The alternative working system may be not fixed working hour systems, which apply to the senior management or drivers, or the compensation waging working day system, which is used for business activity subject to weather and seasonal factors such as farming and fishing. The employer cannot force an employee to work overtime. There you go. That's the first thing right there. The time for working overtime should not exceed 3 hours per day, subject to a ceiling of 36 hours a month. The legal restriction for employees working overtime shall not apply in situations of accidents, catastrophes, breakdown of production equipment, that's a key one, transportation, and public facilities where the public interests are in jeopardy. That's another key one. Social Security contributions, and I don't care about that. And then they talk about, the different cities, right? So we go back to this article, and in this article, they talk essentially about how they find alternative ways and loopholes to not pay the overtime. So we literally just talked about the fact that they can find the loopholes and then what those loopholes are. Those laws, that statement that Keith sent to us, that is so vague, that's not even funny. Like, that's not even like a 1-page document. That wouldn't even fill a Word fucking document at all. Now, maybe there's more. Maybe that's just a snapshot. We'll give the Chinese government credit and say they have a more detailed document, which Keith will find at some point in the trash.
We just have to take one tiny moment to deal with the ad that says, "Should you actually drink your own pee in a survival situation?"
What? Where is that?
Bear Grylls
down.
says.
In your insider, it just had a link that.
No, I want to know where this is.
No, it was on the ad. Keep scrolling down.
All right. Okay. Yeah, because I
keep scrolling. It said it. Come on, keep going.
Oh my god! It is gonna play the ad.
Right there.
Damn it!
Right there.
You're ruining the segment. Oh my god!
I thought that this is important, that we should probably not do this. One, because of ammonia, and the same reason don't drink seawater. So yes, continue on.
Oh my god! Thanks. Hanna.
In my defense,
I'm reading, I'm like, why is this on?
On my page, that was how 1.6 million tons of paper a year are made in Portugal. So
I like your ad better.
Yours at least has comedic value to it. Mine is just late stage capitalism ruining the world.
So.
Oh my god! Is it actually gonna?
Yeah, this dude is gonna be drinking his pee.
You threw me. Why is this on the inside? God damn it! I should not use this page.
It's because you're on Tech Insider, like the website.
Business Insider.
Well, the ad is Tech Insider.
I'm gonna just ignore Hanna for a minute and mute you. Here, let me go.
Yeah.
Where's that mute button? All right. So anyway, we can move on from this. I think we spent quite a bit of time on this as it is anyway. Essentially, this is what they're talking about. The workers are requiring change People are exhausted. They're disenfranchised with endless work hours. Many Gen Zers and millennials are taking to social media to promote the idea of Tang Ping, which translates to lying flat, which is not to be identified as planking, which is a whole different thing that I didn't know about till I watched The Office years and years
You
ago.
didn't know about planking?
I'd never heard of The Office had it on, and I was like, I looked at my wife and I was like, what the fuck is this? She's like, oh, you never heard of planking? The same thing you just said. And I was like, nope. She's like, oh, it's this crazy dumb fad. And I was like, either I'm just too fat to do this, like I just don't lay flat, or I have zero interest in laying on uncomfortable surfaces, probably because I'm fat. But I really don't like to be uncomfortable, and I'm not gonna lay in an there's no what does this get me? Do I get free booze out of this? Do I get money? Do I get like fame and recognition where I could get free booze? No.
You get 2 internet high fives.
You just get useless internet points.
I mean, at least the ice bucket challenge, at least with that, in fairness, like that was trying to raise
don't
awareness.
remind me of that.
Yeah, I actually have a video. We could watch the video later of my son doing it when we did atheist analysis. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I used to
mine
do
just
lots of
came up on
video
my
editing.
memories today.
Yep, did it?
And
does
good
yours come
God,
up on
I
your
forgot
memories?
about mine.
Oh, all
Yeah,
right.
it
So
literally came up today.
Hannah, did you do one?
Mm.
God damn
I'm a
it!
deaf
All right,
person.
Keith.
You dump
Keith.
water on my head, my hearing aids explode, and I die.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, fair enough. You could take them out though.
I know.
Keith, you need. Don't send it to me right now because I'll get distracted. But Keith, send me yours. We're gonna play them next week. Yours and my kids and stuff like that. I'm gonna queue all these up. We're gonna find them. We're gonna find all our old atheist analysis ones from way back in the day. Ugh. Anyway, moving on. We can move on from this. I don't think there's much more to talk about this. It's extremely sad. It's disturbing that other countries do these things.
It's nice that the Chinese are making some kind of changes. We'll see if they continue to change this and continue to support like a healthy working group. And then any other country in the world that's also growing, like we love to see that. In fact, the United States is regressing in multiple areas is also problematic. So, I mean, we'll keep an eye on it. If anyone has an example of something either against or supporting our perspectives when it comes to capitalism exploiting labor, let us know. Send us a link. We'll talk about it. We'll look at it.
All right. So the next segment I have, and this one Hannah will probably like because I used a website that originally I used Politico, but then it led to a website called Open Secrets, and Hannah's brought this up more than one time on our show. And as soon as I found this article, I was like, oh, we're going to cover this tonight. I'm scratching my science segment. Screw it. We're going to do this because I know for a fact that Hanna is very, very pro that site. So let me bring it up on the screen here. I guess I shouldn't talk about things you can't see. Essentially, Trump is funding... Trump is funding. The Trump network essentially has paid $4.3 billion to people. And some of the firms have been 4.3 million. What did I say? Billion? Okay, yeah. He's not that rich.
The orders of magnitude.
Yeah.
Pop. But some of the firms that he's paid money into helped set up the January 6th rally. Now, I saw this headline and thought
insurrection?
Yes, the insurrection, the revolt, the wannabe riot, the ability for the police to not kill any white people and get killed at the same time during all one event. Anyway, moving past that, I honestly thought this was bullshit. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, I found this and I was like, all right, like, this is reaching. Come on. I mean, and it's Huffington Post, right? And Huffington Post is not known for their unbiased opinions.
But it wasn't their original story.
What? It was not their original story. And when I found the original story, I started to get a little bit more excited. So we're going to go ahead and start with the original story. And Hanna, if you want to go ahead and lead us off, we're going to let Hanna handle the next 5 minutes because I know he's got more than enough discussion points on this.
So in the end, Open Secrets is one of those groups that maintains and monitors all political spending. They're their position is to release as much information about anyone. They don't care. And that's one of the reasons why I really like this group. And so opensecrets.org is a great place to go and find really good information about where money in politics is, and then the watchdogs uniting, and they have formed Open Secrets. It says that the Center for Responsive Politics and the National Institute on Money and Politics are joining forces to become Open Secrets. So when I talk about places where I trust, so I look at the Pew Foundation when it comes to really good social analytical tools. I look at Open Secrets when it comes to taking a look at what's going on politically as far as spending is concerned. This is a place that has no problem shitting on a Democrat or a Republican. If you're corrupt and you're just bleeding money, they will just absolutely out you, and that's one of the best parts about it. And so, in the end, what we're looking at when it comes to what happened here is there are political operations, the super PACs, and those groups were spending money, and those groups were spending money to fund people who are organizers. And a lot of times you hear influencers and organizers and those kinds of things. And so a lot of times it isn't the operation saying, I want you to go here to start an insurrection to take over the Capitol. Like, it's rarely that specific. It's more organic and it's more periphery. But in the end, they were funding and paying influencers and organizers to essentially create what turned out to be an attempt at taking over and influencing a major vote that was happening at the Capitol. And that is a different thing than saying Donald Trump organization or Donald Trump's political campaign was funding people to overthrow the government. But in the end, this attack was funded, and they have the money that was going through certain people, and so there's a whole bunch of subpoenas and a whole bunch of operations managers in the permits that were granted, and so there are $170,000, $300,000, $20,000. Like, all of these things are just basically things that are pumping and into the system and growing the networking, the marketing, the people who are responsible for getting all those people there for like a 1,000,000-man march. But in the end, it was a we're going to climb over all the barricades and we're going to attack the police. And in some cases, they were actually the rioters were killed. And so, like, everybody knows that this turned into an absolutely disgusting situation. But when the Trump 2020 campaign is being basically considered for where did this money come from, it says that the 2020 campaign, a joint fundraising committee, the Trump Make America Great Again committee, they spent $771 million to American-made media consultants, LLC. Well, Open Secrets data show that Trump's joint fundraising committee routed another $685,000 through the secretive limited liability corporation. So LLCs, which we all know that if you create an LLC, you can remove yourself from being a lawsuit, a liability. So you could create a corporation. That corporation is its own political entity. You can do a bunch of really skeptical stuff. That company can increase and value their money, and then it can do something that's gross. Let's say it does something so gross that it gets sued and destroyed. You yourself are not liable for the things that happen inside that company, except for really egregious reasons and really egregious situations. So you can create a corporation, LLC, to do stuff, and it can be liable to get in trouble, but you yourself won't. So it gives you the kind of freedom as an individual to take a corporation and do some gross stuff. And so in this case here, they were funding a whole bunch of like $220,000 went to text messaging on January 6th. Right? So, like, where's all this money going if it's not to that group of people to try to inflame them, grow them, upset them, boost them, make this a major event? There are a variety of things in here that OpenSecrets.org is looking at when it comes to who had to declare what. This is funding that's coming in for X from in some cases places that aren't even announced or clarified. So one of the difficulties that California was fighting against was saying like any dark money places actually have to say who they're getting their money from. We don't have that as a law right now. So a lot of the money that's coming in from these things, these $800,000 for Trump's Save America Leadership PAC and Make America Great Again Action Super PAC in 2021, a lot of the money, the people that were funding these things, that money isn't known where it's coming from. We just know that it's coming from that particular PAC. So in some cases, we know that it's gross, and this is money that's going in to fund the uprising. We don't even know who that money came from. It could be coming from one or two people spread over all of these different PACs. There's one super guy, but let's face it, we're not really that much of a conspiracy theory page here. This is just money being, politically motivated. That is essentially illegally funding something that ended up being an attempt to seriously attack the capital of the United States. And so what I'm saying is that the Trump groups and campaigns actually, in a way, funded pretty thoroughly a lot of the people who made that insurrection possible. Therefore, they are liable, or at least partially responsible. And that's
why they're looking into it right now.
Legally, I think they should be liable and partially responsible. Not completely, but we'll see what happens. And as a mechanical engineer making legal analyses, it's one of those things where like this is gross. It'll probably never actually amount to anything, and Trump will never have any kind of responsibility for this. But for the average person, this looks a little bit, a little bit dirty.
Just from what you were explaining, like it's a very distanced and very typical of people like Trump to distance themselves from things, like countries that use sweatshops or child labor in other countries will deliberately set themselves up in such a way that they're distanced enough from it that they create plausible deniability. And because the legal system is very much about requires certainty and things like that. Really out of my element talking about the legal sphere though, where everything has to be specifically laid out. Well, now there's all of these layers in the way that complicate it to the point where it's worse than trying to read through the terms and conditions of just Apple. Basically, you have, how many of us have actually sat and read through all of that? I don't think I could point to a single person, right?
I love the video game companies that put something at the end of it that says, if you call this number, we'll send you a free computer. And some people do, and they get a free computer. It's like, thanks for reading through the whole thing. Here's a free computer. Like, there are like weird ass things. So like certain people have
hold on.
perks.
Fun fact.
Is that how you got your computer? Is that how you got your computer, buddy? Is that why you have all these video issues? Is because you got a free one from an ad? Damn it, Hannah, why are you telling them all this shit?
God, I wish. So fun fact about those riders and things. So my grandmother's cousin, she works with a production company, and she's done that for apparently like decades, apparently. And I've learned some industry secrets. So you know how we hear these weird things that celebrities or have in their riders. So like they have to have only red M&Ms or shit like that. Like every once in a while, you'll see like something on the internet that says, you won't believe what this person demands for their dressing room. Well, that's actually not typically the celebrity or the individual. That's actually somebody else in the production making sure that whoever is following those instructions is doing it to the letter. So they're following everything, and that's a test.
I've actually heard artists say that. Yeah. Make sure that like this isn't just like half.
It's not just because they're kooky. It's because they somebody actually wants to make sure that shit is being read thoroughly and properly, which is what their industry dictates. And it kind of makes sense. Like as somebody who struggles with organization and details, having a list that is so specific that if I don't pay attention, I will miss stuff and it will be noticed. Well, that's damn helpful for somebody like me, because then I'll at least have a hard copy of a list that I know I need to follow. So
yeah, my wife's the same way. Like all of her school that she's going for is online, but yet she's printing all these things out. and she has a planner and all this stuff. And it's because of the ADD, right? You know, like for her, that's the easiest way to do things. Even though, like in my world, if you don't schedule a meeting with me, and if it's not on my calendar, I don't go. That's personal life things too. Like my vacation is programmed into my calendar. All my concerts are in the calendar. And like the wife sometimes will complain at me, and now we're derailing, but what happens is sometimes the wife will complain at me and she'll be like, I didn't know you were going to a concert tonight. Now this, you know, two years ago.
Consult the calendar.
I was like, yeah, it's in the calendar. Oh my God. And then like this month she looked at my our calendar because we have a shared Google calendar. And she looked at it, she's like, you have something on almost every day for 50 to 60% of the month. Well, yeah. I'm not going to do all the stuff on Mondays. Yeah, but you have it in there. I know, it's just to remind myself in case I want to go play X-Wing on Monday night. That's my league night. You know, I was like, I don't go every week. I haven't gone in a month, but it's on there to remind me so that when I get my notifications, when I'm in the bathroom in the morning and I have nothing better to look at, I go through my calendar for the day. And there you go. Then I have that show up on there. So I 100% understand your like dilemma there, you know, buddy. And I'm sorry I tangented and derailed.
Oh yeah, because we definitely hadn't done that.
Yeah. Anyway, so going back to this for a second, you know, and again, we don't have to spend a ton of time because I have one more mini segment that I want to talk about. That's a little bit closer to home for me. But they're talking about in here how they're subpoenaing. Yep, subpoenaing. However you say that. I don't know. Somebody say the words so that I hear it and we'll say it properly.
I didn't know there was
subpoenaing
for subpoena, so I'm assuming it's subpoenaing.
You can't do it either. It's not just me.
Oh, I'm trying to zoom in on the so are there two N's?
No, there's not. I'm telling you, there has to be a plural for the word. If I subpoena multiple people, do you just say I'm going to subpoena these like 7 people? Yeah, is that like a thing?
Actually.
Stupid.
I think it's
English
like
language.
I think it's like
all right, you guys, your goal like by the end of the month. Okay, fine. By the end of the year, y'all got to speak Spanish because Spanish is such a better fucking language than English is. We're gonna all learn how to speak Spanish and do the whole podcast in Spanish, so I don't have to worry about the stupid subpoenaing. You know, like plural.
I think I found it. So it's subpoena, but subpoenaing.
Oh, so I'm right. I'm actually right.
No.
Say it. I'm gonna hear you say it.
If you're saying naning, you're saying it wrong. It's subpoenaing.
Oh, fuck off. Like, it's close enough. Jesus Christ.
Well,
Jesus. Fuck yourself.
You wanted to know.
I'm right.
And now
so,
you know.
Nope.
And then
that I'm right.
flies across the screen.
I just want to hear you say, I want to hear you say, Chris, you were right.
Subpoenaing.
I use an E instead of an A. It's the same thing with wash. You don't say wash. You don't say wash. You say wash. I don't say wash. I say wash and soda.
So there's the word subpoena ending in A. And
subpoenaing.
No,
subpoenaing.
I'm going to say it the way I want to say it. All right. We're going to move on, and you're just going to admit that I was right, because I'm 100% right this time. Like, this is actually one time when I just fuck up the words, and I'm actually correct. Come on. I get at least one a year.
And you're saying that you're right.
No, I'm telling you, you just can't hear how I have a different accent than your dumbass does. There you go. Once you live in Ohio for long enough, your accent's going to change, man. It's going to change. We're turning this podcast into some garbage. We're moving down a garbage trail because you just can't admit that I was right for once. That I actually said the word right. My God. Back to the fucking article before we move on. Now I'm pissed. But back to the article. They're actually calling specific organizations out. Right? There's specific organizations that are actually getting called out and specific people. And again, yeah, you're right. Trump's going to be able to shirk this. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. I don't care. I'm moving past that. I have better things to do than worry about if a multimillionaire gets indicted into court, because I didn't think that he could get indicted before. I thought it was a waste of taxpayer money as it is. And I think the same thing now. Move on. But these other people...
these companies get destroyed. That would be nice.
Yes. That's what we need, is we need to take these companies down. And when you see what the amount of money they are, you have a VIP advisor, right? That got the permits to the national park, right? Oh, you work as a finance company for Trump. for their political operation, and you just randomly secured this? Come on, man. Like, I mean, for fuck's sake. It's like me saying, it's like me walking into Walmart with a gun on my hip, and somebody ends up dead, and I walk back from the cereal aisle, and they're like, did you shoot that guy? It's like, no. See, my gun's not even smoking. You'll never identify the bullet. And they're like, yeah, but you have a gun, and you were in the same aisle. But not the same, not really. I mean, it's not the same time. I don't know how you did. You see me do it?
Even more specifically, it's like, hey, I just noticed that your brother, he lived in a modular home before you were elected. Now he lives in a 4,000 square foot house. Like, how did he manage to? Oh wait, you gave him a bunch of contracts for the new contractor position that he just happens to have, and all the licensing and everything that's required. It seems like your brother got a quick insight and up into a whole bunch of really great places. Like, these companies kind of have the same thing. It's like they have somebody who is in the know, and we talk about like plutocracies and oligarchies. This is a boys' club. This is a boys' club of money getting swung and sloshed and moved around. We talked about this last week, actually, for the idea of the international security state, or the state of the security corporations basically being able to make money off of all these wars. This is a great example of that kind of thing happening on a smaller scale inside of a country that's essentially there. This group is that group, and this group is that group, and they're moving the money all over the place. What happens after it bounces around in enough places? It's essentially laundered, and someone gets elected, and a bunch of influence happens. And so, like, if these corporations and these shell companies can get destroyed, that's going to be for the better. If you look at the American political machine, like, it will be simplifying and clarifications, clarifying for what we call our American political system. But I don't know if we'll ever actually regulate things enough, because there are groups that benefit from deregulating, there are groups that benefit from regulating, and it's almost partisan at this point. So I would love to see these groups go down, but all the people that are part of these groups, they would love to keep these things. They see them as working for the patriot. They see them fighting against the deep state. So, like, even the idea of companies shirking piles of money around is also politicized.
Yep. All right. So I think that's enough. I think we've covered that. I would be excited if they actually indict people, or at least dismantle the companies. So now,
Republicans have different law systems for rich people.
Fair enough.
Haven't you ever heard of the golden rule? Whoever has the gold makes the rule. I learned that when I was a kid. What's funny is that
you don't have enough gold, Keith. So because you ain't making the damn rules yet.
I know, it's bullshit. The ironic thing is that my conservative parents know how much I loved that movie, and they still haven't figured it out.
Maybe you should have a conversation with them and record it, and we'll air it on the show. Anyway.
Oh God.
Ooh, do that. That would be super awesome. All right, so
see the look on my face.
The last topic I wanted to talk about, and I don't want to spend a lot of time, but here's a kind of a question to the group. And I'm going to go first, though, and I'm going to give my opinion because that's just my personality. That's how I do things. The question becomes, though, is we're now a year and a half in, almost more, right, into COVID. We've had a vaccine. They're not talking about boosters. We've had the deniers, the non-deniers. We've had people that are hesitant. We've had the vaccine FDA approved, all these things, right? They're now looking at the Delta variant and these other variants, and things are starting to shut down. I had 7 concerts scheduled in September. 7 fucking concerts scheduled. Out of the 7, so far, only 2 are left. 5 have already rescheduled, which is fine. Not complaining. We're not having a conversation about what we should do. The question I have, and this comes from a personal place, is where do we draw the empathy line when people start dying and people start getting sick? Where is that? I say this because, and I hope my mother doesn't take this personally to some extent, but we have a friend of the family that recently passed away, like very recently. Very, very recently. Now, I didn't know them very well. They were more, I'm not associated with a lot of the people that are religious or Trumpish. So, I've never met this person. I've heard about them for, 15 years, stuff like that. This person passed away yesterday, from complications of ammonia, and I said that right, not pneumonia, but ammonia, COVID. And I feel bad, right? Like some people in my family are taking this kind of hard. This is a big thing, right? This person was in their late 50s, early 60s, pretty healthy person, ex-military, pretty active, not like a lazy alcoholic or any of these other things. A pretty active person, of course, a person of faith. That's without a given. This person passed away. They've been in the hospital for almost a month. I'm having a really hard time empathizing because that person has never spoken out against vaccines, but their wife has aggressively said, this is a conspiracy. This is all these other things. This person's wife got COVID too. They have not openly admitted on Facebook. They just said they were sick, but they had COVID. Their husband's in the hospital fighting for his life on COVID. I hear about this and I have I'm sorry. I am struggling, and this is where I want your guys' advice or your thoughts. I struggle to find the empathy for these people. And I take this personally to a little bit of extent too, because my family, not all of my family is vaccinated. Some of them didn't believe in it until they got COVID last April. Dead serious. And I'll just call y'all. I don't give a shit. You can all disown me. I don't care. Even if you listen to my podcast, which I don't think you do. I would probably feel very sad if somebody close to me passed away from it because they refused to get a vaccine. They got COVID and died. But I'm struggling to find the empathy. I really genuinely am. I'll be honest. Like, I spent today like trying to soul search, trying to find that part of me that says somebody just died. Somebody's a loved one. You know, this is somebody, and this is why we have to have these conversations, because they're talking about the traumatization of these type of deaths. This is a thing now. This is things people should be going to therapy for, that we're going to have to deal with consequences for the next like 20 years. And I struggle really hard right now to find empathy for these families. But if you take it on a base level, they're still people. They're still part of the society. They're still part of this whole network of human beings. They were never bad individuals. They just are making ill-informed, poor decisions. And then some of me wants to rage at the Trump, you know, like, I'm not going to rage against the machine. I'm going to rage against the Trump and the Trump machine. There you go. I'll rage against the Trump machine. But I don't know. So why don't you all tell me I need to hear somebody else's thoughts, because I'm having a hard time processing personally, and I'm having a really hard time finding empathy at all. Especially, and this is the last caveat, especially because a month and a half ago, my sister-in-law passed away from misdiagnosis and poor treatment from a hospital. She didn't have COVID. She was vaccinated. They were careful. They did not die from that. They died from something else. But because whatever they had was not caught fast enough in the 1 week, they passed away. 41 years old. Left a 10-year-old behind and a husband that has been struggling with grief ever since. And if you want to know what makes me an atheist, right there, there's that. This makes me an atheist. But I'm having a hard time empathizing with unvaccinated people who lose loved ones. I don't know how to do it.
I'm gonna just jump on that the first thought that I had here. Once you brought up, you know, you having had your sister-in-law recently pass away. I mean, I'm no psychologist at all, but I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, part of why you're struggling was due to the fact that you've recently been through major emotional upheaval with your sister-in-law, and so it is kind of a way of you distancing yourself from more grief, because as you said, you know, you're looking for it, you're trying to find it, but you're having a hard time feeling it. And I mean, it could be linked to that, or it could just be you know, you coming to find out exact, or the line where you draw, where you see that somebody has, you know, done all that they can do and has not, you know, dug their heels in on some bullshit and stomped their feet around going, no, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong, being a petulant child. And then the thing that they were wrong about comes to bite them in the ass. It could just be, you're just pissed off because you're recognizing that this family member's life probably didn't need to be lost, and their spouse's anti, doing the right thing mentality could be kind of putting a bad taste in your mouth, which perfectly makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, you shouldn't really feel bad about the fact that you don't feel, or that you're struggling to find what you think is the empathy. I mean, yes, loss is sad for others, but I mean, to kind of distance from this particular conversation, I mean, when Billy Graham died, Hitch went on Fox and was shit, or was it Fox? Either way, was shit talking him because he goes, "So what? Somebody's dead. Just because they're dead doesn't mean we stop, remembering what an asshole they were and what a terrible person they were." Like, death is, in my experience, anyways, it brings out the best and the worst of us. I mean, it can bring people together. I mean, if there's a death in the family and the family's been divided, and then there's that death in the family, then suddenly everybody comes together, and somehow whatever rift there was has been repaired. Hooray or whatever. But it can also bring out the worst, in that it's a very intense emotional situation. You're going to react with probably an exaggerated emotional response anyways. So, like I said, like I wouldn't really worry about you not feeling bad, because you're kind of already in the late stages, or in a later stage of grief from another similar situation that just didn't have as many shitty points to it. That, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense.
I'm of two minds on this one. So I haven't lost anyone. Nobody in my family has passed away from this. We've had people get sick. We've had difficulties, but in the end, I'm in two places here. One is when people that I know are adamantly anti-vaccine and adamantly this is fake and this is a joke. I hope I've known multiple people that have gotten it that are of this mindset. And I do not have an issue hoping that theirs is very difficult. It's very harsh to deal with. I hope that they get a strong case and it's a real game changer for them. And the reason I hope for this is because there is a certain amount of the trolley problem that society in general has to deal with. And this is a very clear and distinct situation that is simplifying things almost to that 0 or 1 situation where we have one choice or the other in a lot of cases. And so, like, if this is something that they don't die, they may have some lingering side effects, but they have a really serious case and it changes their perspective a little bit, I do think that is genuinely for the better. And then I don't feel bad or I don't feel sad when, like, a full-on anti-vaxxer, anti-COVID person does indeed lose their life. In the end, this is like a place where being like a materialist, not entirely, is not it's not a comfortable place to be. But as a non-believer, as someone who sees the universe as kind of a series of mechanical systems that are able to become complex enough to become self-aware, a lot of the things when it comes to grief and that kind of thing, like, they are, while important, they're chemical impulses and connected to the emotional drives of the fight or flight response and a variety of other things. Like, all of that kind of stuff, to me, it just reduces the pain that I would expect to feel on someone who is intentionally making decisions, one, that could endanger my immediate brood, right? So, like, if someone is saying this is fake and they're not going to do it and they get sick and they die, that's one less person who can endanger my children, who can endanger. I'm vaccinated, my wife is vaccinated, my children are not, but most of my family is. Almost everyone that I know is, besides one or two that I know for certain in my extended family. But other than that, everyone has kind of done the right thing. The children, obviously not to a certain age, but I mean, just the fact that someone could potentially be around my family that would choose not to and choose, this fantasy thinking, um, I would love for them to learn a real harsh lesson. And that's me protecting my genes, if you want to go on that end. And I find myself just, as time goes on, less and less, and I've had conversations with people at work about this, is like, I find myself less and less being able to care and less being able to really empathize, because in the end there has to be a point where I'm going to pull the lever that has less people on it. I mean, I really have to, and it's a philosophical difficulty, but it's a real thing. Sometimes you have to make that switch. To bring back to the entire conversation today, I mean, Biden pulled a switch. I mean, he pulled a switch, and there are consequences of action. And people saying that they don't think that this is real and this is not a big deal, and they get sick and they die, or they get sick and there are long-term consequences. We told them as much as we could. They want autonomy. Don't step on Sneck, right? Well, this is the decision you made, and these are the consequences of your decision. We can't hold everyone's hand, and so I don't feel that you are in any way different than probably a lot of people feel. They may not be comfortable enough to say it because there is a social stigma to taking any kind of, I guess, satisfaction when someone learns a pretty aggressive and harsh lesson, even in their family. But not feeling empathy is it's not unnatural here.
That's good to know, because that was one of the larger debates I had
tough,
today.
Man. As this time goes on, people are going to be dealing with it more and more.
No, and like, I'll be honest here. As frustrating as it is, I'm gonna stick with frustrating. To your point, Hannah, you're talking about people being the anti-vaccine. Well, I have mentioned that my parents are conservatives, and they are. I know that they're both very leery about getting vaccinated and are opposed to it because they don't believe it should be forced. Which, I mean, I also agree that the vaccine shouldn't be forced, but my problem is that, well, no, it shouldn't be forced, but why don't you want to get it then? Like, what's your reason for not getting it? Well, my dad actually has a legitimate reason. He is on a medication that basically it has a warning label that says you cannot get a vaccine when you are taking this medication. But
required with exceptions.
But well, it's because
required.
Well, people like him are the reason for we need the herd immunity, right? And that's part of my problem. Is like,
he has a medical
we know exactly a genuine fucking exemption. Really? So that's why we need the herd immunity. That's why the vaccines need to be rolled out. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, I know I'd be pretty devastated if I lost any of them because they are my family. And as much as I strongly disagree, I've managed to at least nudge them along the way, painfully slow through the years, but I have, and they have had my back when I've really struggled. And so it's kind of it sucks because it's a bitter taste, but it's also there. And I mean, but I'd also be balancing those feelings with, but you fucking knew better. So it's I don't think you're devoid of empathy at all, Tanner. I don't. I think maybe at worst you may have burned out your empathy, but I don't think you're without.
It has to be binary. Who says you have to?
Exactly.
Or you don't. You can have a varying layer of it. I know that
or maybe you're just having next stage evolution empathy.
All right.
There we go.
So let's move on to our quick saves. Tonight's first quick save is BCITO Apprenticeship, a tricky chat. And no, I'm not going to play the audio, damn it, because
you can.
I'm not going to get nailed with it.
This is me being the skilled tradesman in the group here. And so this video is a nice young man telling his parents, I want to be a tradie. So, and I believe that's what they say in Australia when they want to be a tradesman. They want to be a welder. They want to be a machinist. They want to be a guy who builds houses. They want to be a carpenter. They want to be a maker, and this video is this group basically saying that like the over requiring of college degrees. So like his father's like part of the accounting group, and they find like hammers, and he's watching videos of sanding, and the sister or whatever in that video is just like, why can't you just be like your sister? She got a degree, and she's like, she's still living at home. She's 31. Like, there's a bunch of disses about. The father says there, he's just like, well, who's Philip? It's like, it's a screwdriver, father. Like, it's all about like getting construction apprentices, being people that work with their hands and making things and being skilled tradesmen. Often you can get more immediately right out of the gate. There may be a ceiling that you might not be able to overcome when it comes to skilled trades positions versus a college degree, which is often a legitimate argument, but it's a funny, clean, joke-ridden commercial for just being cool about working with your hands and doing something like that, and how that's not something that we should look down on. And I see little things like that every
Absolutely.
once in a while, and that one made me smile. It was a good one. Like it felt like an SNL skit. It was pretty good. I was pretty thoroughly entertained.
Absolutely. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, after the oil industry did its thing here, like they would scoop up a lot of kids right out of high school. And I will say that the criticisms that they gave kids too much money too quick was a huge problem. But there was a small number that did actually end up going on to make a longer term career.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, whether, like there's always going to be an oil industry. It's just a matter of, is it going to be one that's more sustainable or one that's purely profit driven?
Yeah. Well, I just like in the video here, there's like dude,
Yeah.
he's got his laptop open in his lap, and his mom opens the door, and he's watching a video of a guy sanding and woodworking, and he's like,
God, I'll watch this.
So she thinks it's porn.
I don't know. I was just happily giggling at something, just not quite so heavy. But speaking of heavy,
Yeah, speaking of not heavy, actually, this is pretty light.
it's
quick
cast iron, though, isn't it? Oh no, you went carbon steel.
It's carbon steel. It's better than cast iron. This is I would just shut the fuck up and listen for a minute. Are you gonna let me do my quick save, or are you just gonna interrupt and try and tell me that the cast iron is so much better than this? You don't know what the fuck I'm cooking.
No.
All right. So, from my understanding, and this was given to me by a friend that is pretty into cooking, actually probably more than me. In fairness, he's single with one daughter, so like, in fairness, he has a little bit more money to be into cooking than I do. But he's a really good cook. Like, in fairness, my friend is like a really good cook. I love seeing him cook. I love actually eating his food, except for when he puts eggs and things. And I love his thing. So he posted about buying this carbon steel wok, right? And I was like, all right, whatever. And then he started posting pictures of him. Because you have to cure it. You have to do specific things to it. And then I looked up some videos online, and I messaged him. I was like, hey, this looks really cool. And he sent me a million links, right? Because he's trying to get me to get a Japanese rice cooker, and I just don't need another goddamn appliance in my house. But he keeps trying to get me to get one, and I probably will get one for Christmas. Like, I think that's what I was going to tell my wife is, can I get rid of my old rice cooker? Can you get me a Japanese one? But anyway, whatever. We'll move past that. Like, this thing is like, if you go into a Chinese restaurant, right, and you see them cooking over those large fires with these huge woks, that's what this is. That's what he explained it to me. He sent me the videos. I did some research. I don't have the top of the line Escalon, one. I have a generic one that is decent, authentic, something that you can use. And I will tell you right now, the food out of it is fucking amazing. I made 2 meals within 2 days. Like, I got it while I was on vacation, and I got a notification from Amazon that this fucker came. And I was like, I told my wife, I was like, guess what we're eating when we get home? She's like, do we have to have Chinese food again? Honey, I just bought a wok. I know, but you already own a wok.
You don't have to cook Chinese food in a wok. You can cook all
You're right. You don't. You're right. I could cook Thai food in it or Indian food in it.
It's absolutely amazing for frying anything. Like, to be able to fling and toss, like,
holy crap,
flash cooked. It's so
good. Man, this is insanely good. Like, I cannot, the best thing that's going to happen is this winter, it's going to get cold, right? And like, I don't typically eat a lot of steak during the winter because I don't mind the reverse sear. And now we're getting down a rabbit tangent, but I like steak a lot. I don't care for the reverse sear all the time. I will eat it like a couple times a month if I want a steak. I really like steak, but I already have decided I'm going to buy some Wagyu beef, or however you say that, and I'm going to do my saute. Yeah, there you go. That motion where I'm not jacking off, but shuffling my wok over my fire, because I have a fucking amazing gas stove. I have like the best gas stove in the world. Love that thing. I get a flame like this high on that fucking stove. Like, I can really get that going. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the little like squares of beef. And like, okay, so, and here's another tangent, but there was a Wii game called WarioWares, and this has been going on for a long time, but they have this Wii game called WarioWares, and one of the mini games is you have to like saute this like this chunk of meat and get it on all sides before like 4 seconds is up or something like that. And my daughter saw this. She goes, "Are we going to saute steak in that, Dad?" I was like, "Abso-fucking-lutely, we will." Like, that's a winter thing. We're going to cut it into like chunks, and we're going to saute the shit out of that. And she was excited. Yeah. But I love this thing. This I have only used it twice. I've only had it for about 2 weeks. I was a little sick, so I couldn't use it while I was sick. And not everybody in my house cares for all of it. And I'll tell you, it's not as easy to clean as I thought it would be. Like, you don't know where the staining is versus the dirty part of it is.
As time goes on, when your seal gets cooked in better and you cook more fats over time, it's really easy to clean. My cast iron pans, the concept is the same. Essentially, carbon steel just allows you to be significantly lighter but maintain the same kind of hardness and longevity. You will be able to use that carbon steel for the rest of your life without question if you treat it well and you oil it good. Like, it is. You can cook eggs and just spin them once you've got it going. My cast irons, I can flip eggs around like they're on a nonstick pan. Like, if you just cook with it and do it right every time, and you gotta clean it and oil it after. But that's if you can get the heat good enough, a carbon steel wok is going to be the coolest thing. I just don't have enough heat. I have electric range, and so I literally can't have.
Sounds like you need to get rid of that right now. Well, you have a grill outside. You have a fire grill outside though, so you could.
Mm-hmm. So we're looking at doing our kitchen and some other things, but like that's one of the things. Another thing is, like, anyone who's interested in doing a wok or something like this, like, you need, high heat, and a flame heat rolls around the whole thing, so you get the whole thing good and hot up on the high sides. And so, like, if you're looking at doing something like this, like, if you don't have a real good heat source, it's not going to really work for you. But if you've got a good range top, you can get some good flames going. You can cook on the sides and then the center.
You know what I told my wife when we redo our kitchen? I'm gonna put one, just like a specific like grill in there that has just big fire pit, and it's just for my wok. Like, we already had that conversation. She's not happy, but that's the conversation we had. I said, we're gonna fucking I'm gonna have my own little wok.
It requires a
ventilation system. Fan. I don't care.
Well,
I'm okay with that.
Just because I didn't really have a whole lot else to add to the conversation, I was just kind of curious, because you're on the Amazon.com, and it said for me to ship this, of course it's in US dollars, it says $36.88 plus $20.41 for shipping and import fees to Canada. And I found it. I did send it to you guys. I found the Canadian Amazon link for it, and the base is $61.96 in Canadian dollars. So to put this into perspective, the $36.88 base price in US dollars is $46.54 in Canadian dollars. But you tack on the $20.41 shipping and import fees, and so it's $57.09 American, becomes $72.04 Canadian. So shit's more expensive in Canada.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's all made in China.
Yeah, and I thought we were nicer to China, but...
All right. I'm okay with that piece being from China. At least they know what the fuck they're making. Okay, let's move on to the last quick save before we go down a tangent. This is from the Beltline Urban Murals Project. The Filipinx, I'm not going to say his next name, Artist Collective.
That's actually not
Kasagana.
a name. That's a
Kasagana.
Tagalog word. It's
No.
Kasagana. Kasaganaan. Uh,
Casa.
yeah, and basically it translates to abundance, wealth type thing. Although there is a particular reason why I picked this specific one instead of just the entire YYC Bump project. So the YYC Bump, just to give a bit of a primer, it's a local initiative that started a couple of years ago, I guess. That basically it would give artists, local artists, a chance to put some of their work in a more public setting. Now, it does occur in an area that's just south of our downtown, so it's still really close. It's kind of on the edge of downtown, and basically you can do these tours where you will walk down the street, and there it will tell you that certain buildings have pieces by different artists, and you find this all online. All of the artists' information isn't actually put with the piece; it's put online because there is a fair bit of crime and drunken debauchery that goes on around these areas. And the reason why I went with the Philippine X Kasaganaan Artist Collective is because one particular artist, Gladzy Kai, is a friend of mine. She's a local artist and cosplayer, does a lot of international tours and appearances. Some of her works have even actually been featured in bigger magazines. She did a Moana cosplay that got a lot of attention a few years back, just with how well it worked. So I just thought I would draw a little bit more attention to that because I think it's a really great initiative, and I love their project and their piece. If you're able to find it, I don't know. Yeah, they haven't put it there. It's all on the Instagram, and I did provide a bunch of Instagram links that I can put up with the show notes. And it's kind of the progress as it goes. But it's what the hell did she say about the piece here? It is no. I thought this would be it. Damn it. Anyways, believe they call their piece the Philippine Woman dancing. And there's another dancer with it as well. I don't know if you're able to find some of the other pieces for it, but it's she posted a lot of the in progress pictures, I guess you could say, and it was really really cool. Because my wife and I actually last summer we went and we did the walk and saw a bunch of really neat pieces. A lot of them are will be like indigenous artists, or others will be people of color. So it gives them a chance to kind of put their artwork in a public sphere. And what I love about it is the fact that it's basically they're just putting it out there. Oh, perfect. They're putting the work out there, but they don't have to pay, or as far as I know, they don't have to pay the fees or whatever. They just get to be a part of an initiative that highlights local artists and gives them the chance to have their work get seen instead of just them having to, scrounge around and go to as many different meets as possible. This gives them a fair bit of exposure. So it is something like if you get the chance to look around through various posts, because the YYCBump.ca website, that's the main website. I'm hoping that they have a lot more images of the pieces because it's absolutely beautiful. A lot of them are just incredible. And what's really funny is that some of them you actually wouldn't even know the art was there if you weren't looking for it. It's just it's not that it's out of the way. It's just it blends in and it works well with the community and all of that. So it's really neat. And yeah, I thought it was a fantastic idea and definitely worth a look. And if you're local Calgarian like myself, what's up? Take a tour through the Beltline and go see some of the local artists. And you can find who did which piece online. It's not like it's a great difficulty. I mean, the place where you find your tour will tell you. So check it out.
If you can't support local art in Calgary, support local art wherever you are. Like, there's all kinds of this kind of
Locally.
stuff all over the
Yeah.
place. That's
Hell
something
yeah.
that you can just go look at and stuff. That's cool as hell, man. I think that's an awesome thing to be paying attention to and part of.
All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to wrap the show up. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We've had a pretty amazing show for episode 284. Fuck Biden. I'm going to say it again. Fuck Biden. Fuck Biden. Fuck Biden. And we should have done a better job of leaving Afghanistan. With that being said, we'll be back next week with another amazing episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. We are going to move for now. We're going to move to Tuesdays to give us a little bit more time to prep the episodes. With that being said, thank you all. Have a good night, and we'll see you next week, Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern.